Hey everybody, what's going on? In this video I'm going to be tying one of my favorite nymphs of all time. It's called the Blowtorch. I use this fly as an anchor fly to get midges down in the water. It works all seasons, works great in the winter, works great in the summer. Brook trout, brown trout, rainbows, you name it, it catches fish, period. With that being said, I'm going to kind of walk you guys through how I tie mine. And we're going to start off with putting some orange thread on here. I'm gonna have the materials listed at the beginning of the video, so I'm not gonna go through them right now. But we're gonna get started off with some orange thread here. Go right to the bend in the hook, and then we're gonna come back up to the front. And now there's a few different things we're gonna tie in. We're gonna start with some Veevus pearl tinsel, size small. This stuff's really good. I like the small size. It's a little bit easier to work with. It makes a cleaner fly in the end. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut yourself off a piece of that, and you're going to tie it in right behind the bead. Alright, and just hang out there for a second. The next thing we're going to tie in is a little piece of monofilament, like 2-pound test. And I'll show you why when we do the thread wraps on the body. Why this is an important step. It really adds to the durability of this fly, and I've found that if you add this in, it actually, you catch a ton of fish on this thing, and you don't end up having the tinsel come unraveled, anything like that. And the last thing that we're going to add in is some Glo Brite Floss for a little hot spot in the back. So I'm going to cut a piece of that off, and I like to double it over. So what I'll do is I'll kind of fold it in half. And I'll take these ends, the two loose ends, can't really see that, can you? And I'll just tie them in right behind the bead of the hook, just like that. And then I'll go ahead and just cut off that extra there. Now all you're going to do here is you're going to grab all three of these materials that you just tied in and pull them straight back. I do my best to keep the floss, the orange floss on top, but we're going to take this back all the way to where we ended our thread. You can stop every now and then just to make sure that your tinsel's on top, or not your tinsel, I'm sorry, your floss is on top. It looks kind of funny if it ends up underneath the tinsel and the monofilament. And now that we've got those all the way to the back, we can kind of give our body a little bit of bulk here. I just like to wrap gold times forward, kind of even it out, and then bring it to the back again. Alright, the next thing we need is some sort of peacock dubbing. Now I like this Spectrablend dubbing number 46. It's tough to dub evenly, but I kind of like how it looks, and I think it adds a lot of flash. So you're going to get yourself a little bit, and we're going to kind of start to dub ourselves a little bit of a body here. So obviously start out thinner than you think you need. This stuff is better than like a dry fly dubbing. It's easy to take off the thread, but just in case, I like to start thin. We're just going to start dubbing right from the back, and we want to build a relatively nice even taper all the way to the front. So I'm going to need a little more. That's fine. It's better to have less and need more than more, and then all of a sudden you got a big clumpy mess. So I'm going to grab another clump here. Same deal. I'm just going to add it onto the thread, and we kind of want to make the front part of this a little bit thicker, just like this. And that's kind of how you want to have it to look. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to take our tinsel and we're going to wrap it starting underneath. So nice even body wraps starting underneath, just like this. Alright, and then tie it off at the front, just like that. You can go ahead and cut off your extra. Now what we're going to do with the monofilament, this adds a ton of durability. We're actually going to counter rib this with the monofilament, and that kind of locks in the dubbing. It keeps it from getting all haywire on you, and it also protects the tinsel from, you know, a trout essentially pulling it all out of place and making a mess of your fly. Gives it a whole bunch more durability. I'm a big fan of using the monofilament. I'll use it on other stuff too, rainbow warriors. Sometimes I'll use it on pheasant tail nymphs. It's really up to you, but basically we're going to counter rib it. So the opposite way that we just ribbed, we're going to take our monofilament and go ahead and do counter ribs. Just like this. Go ahead and tie it off. And we can snip that off. Alright, now at this point what I like to do is I like to take this little hot spot and I like to trim it in. Just to get this out of the way, this extra, you don't need that to be hanging there while you're finishing up your fly. But the way I do this is I'll pull it tight and then kind of eyeball it, but maybe a little bit past the bend of the hook, you just want to snip it off. And there's your hot spot. So you flare that out and you got yourself a nice little hot spot. You can see there's some dubbing that looks a little haywire. That's totally okay. I actually think it's better than you know, not at all. It kind of adds a little bit of realism to your fly. And the last thing we need is some squirrel dubbing. Now I'll use brown, I'll use gray. It's kind of up to you. Both will fish equally as well. Gray, when it gets wet, looks like brown, so it doesn't really matter anyways. But I'm going to use dark brown, so just a little bit of this dark brown squirrel dubbing. You don't need anything in particular. This kind of just adds a little bit of a furry collar to it. So we're going to take some of that, maybe a little more than you think you need. I've got about that much, and we're just going to add it to our thread. So you can kind of loose dub this too. I mean, I'm going to dub it a little tighter and then kind of brush it out after, but you're going to want to loosely dub it and then kind of build yourself up a little bit of a collar there. And now at this point you can kind of brush it out. You can see it added a little bit of legginess to this fly, a little bit of contrast, and kind of finished up the body shape. And the last step to this fly is just adding a little bit of a thread collar to it. So I've got this bright orange thread, and all I'm going to do is just keep wrapping until I've got a reasonably sized collar. You don't want it too big, obviously, because you'll start to overtake your dubbing, but I mean, just like that is probably as much as I'll go. Maybe a few more wraps towards the bead, but that's really all there is to it. So at this point, all I'm going to do is whip finish. I like to do 3 and then I'll add some cement, but pull it tight, take your scissors, and just go ahead and snip it off. And that's all there is to it. So you can see it's got that orange collar, it's got the squirrel dubbing, your hot spot, and the body ends up looking really, really clean, especially when you wrap it with that counter rib monofilament line. But yeah, it's a super fishy fly, super easy to tie. I mean, I fish these, it's one of my go-tos, especially on a double nymph rig. This will be my anchor fly, and you know, as a result, I end up catching a lot of really nice fish on it. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a fly that everybody should have in their box. It's easy enough to tie, it's simple, you know, you don't need to spend a ton of money on materials, and it looks really clean, it looks really nice. These Euro style flies fish well, and these are competition, you know, Euro style flies for a reason. I like using these with conventional, you know, fly fishing tackle. These aren't, you know, a lot of guys obviously Euro nymph and stuff like that. I don't, but I like these style of flies and they work really well. So yeah, I guess thank you for watching. You know, tie them up and get out on the rivers and you know, catch some fish. These are good flies. You're gonna want to have them. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you watching.